What's up, bros, and welcome to another Brograph tutorial. I am Dave Koss, and I've got my Fruit Loop shirt on, and I've got my midweek throat beard going on, so it must be time for another awesome tutorial. This particular tutorial, we are going to be talking about making a price clock out of Xpresso. That's like a clock where you can, it kind of flips like a clock, but it looks like a price, and it's something you can control with Xpresso and type in the number that you want and it comes up. Why would you want to create a price clock?
We're stacking them deep and selling them cheap. A Nissan Altima was $19,995. Now only $14,889. We don't care how you get here, folks. Just get here.
Let's face it, not all of us are going to go directly from school and go work at Pixar. There are bills to be paid, and this is a very practical application for something like this, especially when it's something that might have to be changed. A lot of times you'll have, especially if this is an ongoing client of yours, you'll have some sort of price that needs to flip back and forth, and maybe you change that. Maybe you do a new version of that every single week. Maybe you do one every month. And the best way to build projects that might be long-term like this is to spend a little bit of extra time at the beginning so that you can go back and you can make changes easy, and you don't have to spend a lot of time tweaking. You can just type in a couple numbers, re-render, and you're ready to go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is open Cinema 4D, and this is going to be a rotating numbers clock. So we're going to need cylinders. I'm going to create a cylinder, and I'm going to orient it at -Z. So here is my cylinder. Let's scale this up a little bit. I don't want it too small. Alright. There is my cylinder. Now, to get going on this, we got to think a number clock is a series of numbers that go from 0 to 9. Now, a regular clock wouldn't do this, but this is prices, so it does work this way. And we have to create a 0 through 9 to go on this cylinder. First thing that I'm going to do is look at the segments on the cylinder. I'm going to go to display, and I'm going to turn on lines in whatever shading mode I'm in, so you can see these segments going around. Right now there are 36 rotation segments. Now what I would like to do is put this in some sort of round number so that it's easy for me to select an even amount of segments, apply a number to it as a texture, and then do the same thing all the way around so that it fits. And I don't have any segments left over when I'm done. So there being 10 numbers, let's go ahead and put 100 rotation segments in. So every single one of these segments here, or every 10 of these segments, we're going to have a number. So with this set here, we're going to hit C, because that is going to mix down our cylinder. Now, something you might want to do before you do that, if you're really going to make this look pretty, is you might want to put some sort of fillet on the side. I've got a lot of segments in there. I'm going to take that down, because if you're making this a real pretty clock, you're going to want to have a nice little bevel on the edge or something like that. For this case, just so I can show you without having to mess with all this stuff, I'm going to turn this off. So no fillets on this. This is just for demonstration purposes. We're not going to make this clock look that pretty. I'll leave that up to you to figure out, because every client's going to be different, and every price clock is going to be different. You might not build it the same way that I do here. So again, you have your cylinder. You're going to hit C, because that's going to turn it into a mixed down polygon. Now, if you look at this from the side, you know, in either your perspective view or your front view, whatever you want to do, you'll notice that we have got this flat side aligned so that you've got a segment right here. Now if I backtrack for a second, I'll show you why that's important. Let's say that we had less segments. Let's say that we had only 10 segments. You see what happens here is that that pointed segment goes out to the front. If you had a clock that was kind of turning and you were designing a clock that looked more like this rather than one that had a bunch of segments that wasn't rounded, you would probably want to orient your axis off by 18 degrees because that's going to put your flat side forward. We're not doing that now, but I just thought I would mention that because if you have a clock that looks like that, you would probably want to do that before you got going. So I'm going to go back. I have 100 segments going around this. I'm going to flatten it with C, mix it down to editable polygon here, and we have to create these textures. So I'm going to go into Photoshop. I'm going to do a new file. What I like to do in my files is television resolution is 72 dpi, but I like to just up that just in case I end up zooming the camera in a little bit close. I don't want to end up having low resolution on one of my textures when I get up close and then realize that I should have made all my textures a lot higher resolution, because then you just have to backtrack. That's no fun. So I usually like to stick with 300 dpi. In this case, for width and height, I'm just going to take a guess. I'm going to say that I want my width to be 600 and my height to be 900. I'm going to let it create a new file. That might be a little bit tall, but we're not going to use the whole thing. Some of that might get cut out. And I'm going to, for now, just so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to create a layer of black. Then I'm going to create a text layer that is white. And I'm going to put a big fat stinking 0 right in here. Now, I really have to expand this up because you can't even see it. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, there's my 0. Okay. Now, I want this to be pretty big, and I want all my subsequent numbers as well that I create here to be centered. So I'm going to go back to my text tool, make sure this is set to center, because if it's not set to center, what's going to happen is you're going to type in other numbers here and they're going to kind of be off to the left or to the right. You want to make sure that this centers in here. I'm also going to turn on, I'm going to go to View and Show, turn on Grid. So I have a nice grid here, and I'm going to make sure that snapping is on, and I'm snapping to grid, and I'm going to snap this big fat 0 right to the grid here, and then I'm going to crop the rest of my canvas. I don't want the top and bottom. There's too much space in there. I'm going to use a crop tool. I want a little bit of space though. I don't want no space. But I kind of like that. Now the left and right isn't as much of a problem because you might actually want a little bit of that extra space to slide left or right. Depends on how big your cylinder is. Hit enter there. So I got my 0. Now, what I got to do is create 10 different Photoshop layers for this. And this might get a little bit tedious, so I might have to fast forward, but I'm going to show you what to do first before I get to fast forwarding. I got 0. I'm going to duplicate the layer by dragging it into a new layer, and I'm going to type 1. Okay, there's my 1. And I'm going to drag it in again, and I'm going to type 2. And so on and so forth. You can pick a nice pretty font if you want. I'm just going to stick with this myriad. It's whatever. And let me fast forward and I'll see you back in a minute. So I've created 0 through 9. Have all my numbers ready to go. These are going to come in as textures. What I don't want in my texture is that background layer. I'm going to turn it off. It really doesn't matter actually if you have these on, because we're going to go specifically select the number layers that we want in Cinema. I'm going to save as, and I'm going to put this into my project, in my graphics project. Cinema 4D in the textures folder. I'm going to call this numbers. And my layers are saved. And now I'm going to go back into Cinema 4D. Now we've got this segmented into 100. So the next step is to create a material, and each material is going to be duplicated. So I'm going to double click down here in my materials, and under color I'm going to go to that texture, and I'm going to load up my numbers. Yes, I want it in the project location, even though it's already there. It's in the textures folder, and that's in my color layer. I also want to add an alpha layer, and in the alpha layer I want to load the same exact texture. Now in each of these I'm going to go in and I'm going to specifically choose the layer that I want. So in color, the color tab here, I'm going to bring down my texture, and in layer set I'm going to select what layer I want. We're going to start with 0. So I'm selecting just 0 right here. You can hit show layer content if you want to see what's on these. You see the 0 there, and I'm going to hit OK. Now I want whatever texture is actually on the cylinder here to shine through, so I need that alpha. And I'm going to do the same thing, drop it down. I'm going to go to select. I'm going to pick 0, but I'm going to say layer alpha. I want the layer alpha of layer 0 from that Photoshop file. And there it is, and you can see down here there's a clear looking 0. Now gotta go back and do the color and alpha for all 10 of these. So I'm going to fast forward again, and I'll see you in a minute. Alright, now I've got 0 through 9. All my numbers are ready to put onto this cylinder. So I'm going to start by selecting my first 10 segments. I'm going to click this tool right here, which is the Polygon selection tool, and I'm going to do my live selection. You can see my live selection here. It's selecting 2 at a time, which I don't like that. I want my radius to be pretty small because I only want to select one segment at a time. See, if this were up to like 20, it would select a whole bunch at the same time. But I want to be really meticulous and make sure that I get these exactly right, so that's why I have this radius set to 1. So the one that is flat ahead, we're going to do 5 segments on top and 5 on the bottom, because our first number is going to be right there in the middle. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm using the shift key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 segments that are selected here, okay? So drag your 0 right onto that. And what do you see? Probably nothing. The reason for that is because we have to orient our texture onto this correctly. So I'm going to click on the texture tag here. I'm going to tell it that I want to do flat. And now if I hit render, you notice there's nothing there. I want this to be a flat projection for a reason. Now if you click on cylinder and you click on texture mode, notice that the texture is being projected toward the side of this. This is not the way that we want it to be oriented. So if you hit R to rotate and rotate this 90 degrees, hold down shift so that it locks into place, and see, you can see that this is starting to come into place here. It's still not the right size, but you can scale that I'm going to kind of finagle this a little bit with my texture tool until I get it into place. There we go. Like that. Looking pretty. Alright. There is my 0. Now, we want to copy this method over the entire thing. And what we don't want to do is have to line these up every single time, because that's going to be a big pain, and they're not going to look exactly the same. They're not going to be centered exactly the same. In fact, if you'll notice, I'm still a little bit off here. I want to make sure that top to bottom I am centered on these segments, or else that will become a little bit problematic. Things won't line up when we make our clock move. So now that that's in place, we want to do another selection. Now over here, this is your selection tag, and you can see that is the selection that is set for 0. However, we want to name this so that we don't get really confused. This selection here, we're going to call that 0. Now, you'll notice that your texture disappeared. Why is that? Well, that's because I wish it were automatic. It seems like it should be automatic, but you go back to your texture tag, it's still looking for polygon selection number 1, which we just changed the name of it. So if you take your selection and drag it down here into selection on the material, it will pop right back into place where it needs to be. Now, we want to duplicate this, and we want the texture tags to be able to be duplicated again, so that we are not sitting here trying to line up all of these textures. So I'm going to go back to this selection tool, my Polygon selection tool, and I'm going to be back in live selection here. Click on the cylinder so that you can select again. Now I'm going to select another 10 above that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So how do I duplicate what I did before and keep it all lined up? This is how. You go to select, and you say set selection. It creates another one of those in here, another one of those tags, those selection tags, and we're going to name it 1. So the selection is in here, we just don't have a material in here. Now we could go about putting a 1 in here, we could assign 1 to the selection, but then it's not lined up. We'd have to go align the whole thing again. So here's how you get around that. Take the 0, and you're going to hold down Command so that it copies your 0. Now it's still set to selection 0 on this new copy. You want it selection 1, so if you just drag the 1 tag into that selection, there's your next one. Now it doesn't look right, and why is that? That is because if you go back to your texture mode, well, it needs to be flat onto this section, not flat onto the front. That's what's causing that skew right there, because it's not oriented, the texture is not oriented correctly. Now there are 360 degrees in a circle, and we've got 10 numbers, so that means every 36 degrees you want to orient that texture. So if you go to the rotate tool, you can see, and of course I'm on the wrong texture, so hold on. If you orient this at 36 degrees, now it looks right, because each one of these has to be turned 36 degrees for it to be straight flat with those segments. I'm going to create another selection of 10. I'm going to set my selection, and I'm going to give it a name of a number. The next one will be 2, and then I'm going to set material for that, and so on and so on and so on. we're going to have zeros going all the way around this. The reason is you can make sure that they're all oriented correctly and they all look the same. We'll worry about putting the other numbers in later because that's easy to do. So I'm going to fast forward again. You're going to see me put in all the numbers, and I'll be back with you in a minute. Something really important before I fast forward. Every time you set a selection, make sure you deselect your selection over here in your object viewer, or it's just going to start saving those selections on top of each other. Very important. Make sure that you're saving them and naming them as you go so that you have all of those selection tags when you're done. Okay, here I go. Alright, just checking in with you to make sure everything's going well. You got all your tags in here, your selection tags. You got to go through, duplicate these tags, holding down Command, and just moving these tags in between just to keep it all organized so you can see what goes with what. You have 0 through 9 tags here, all labeled. Nice. Okay. Then you got to go through to each tag. You see this is going to be my number 1 texture, and drag the 1 selection into it. This will be my number 2 material. I'll drag the number 2 into it. Number 3 texture. I'm going to drag the 3rd selection into it. Don't worry about what it looks like right now. Just keep doing that in your object viewer to keep everything organized, and it's all going to fall into place in a minute, I promise you. I'm going to fast forward again and keep going, and I'll be right back with you. I got all of them on here. Don't have my materials aligned correctly yet. I got to go through and select the cylinder, select the texture, texture mode, and I've got to go to each individual tag and make sure that as I go, each one is rotated another 36 degrees exactly so that all these textures line up. So I'm going to continue going. I've got 0 and 1, and I got to go 2 through 9 and align those 36 more degrees every single time, and I'll be right back with you. By the way, it might help to have a little calculator here, because if you're in coordinates and you're changing these, you don't want to have to try and like get it exactly 36 degrees by hand. In this case, negative 36 for each one. Use a calculator if you don't know how to add 36. I don't. I've aligned every single one of these textures, and look, it all just magically lines up. If I go to each texture, you can see that my rotation is 36, 72, or negative in this case because we're going that direction. 108, 144, 180, that's halfway. 216, 252, 288, and 324 on the last one. Zeros everywhere. Alright, they look aligned. They look aligned to their segments. So we have this 0 through 9 here. Let's start doing a replace. Now, this was much better copying and pasting and moving a few things than it was trying to perfectly align every texture and get it just right, wasn't it? So, next step, I'm just going to start dropping these textures one by one into the existing textures that we already made, which means they will retain the values that we put in every single one. All the values stay the same, so that when we look at this, everything is perfectly aligned. Great. Now you can see through it. What do you do about that? Well, usually I would say let's put a black color in there, but when you render for the purposes of this tutorial, we just want to see what we're doing. So I'm going to make it red just so we can see. Now, all you got to do is create a texture of the color that you choose. In my case, red. Put it on the base, though, of the cylinder. See, now I put it on the top texture, it covers everything up. You want that to be the base, you want it to be at the bottom. And because we have that alpha channel in there, it shows right through. Now, I do have to note that my aliasing, all this stuff is kind of defaulted. Make sure your aliasing is at best so that you don't get jaggedy edges around your numbers on their alpha channels. So here we go. That's all well and good, but how do you build the clock so that you can type in any number you want? First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a null. So I'm going to go up here to create, and I'm going to say object and null. And this null is going to be called data, or data, depending on if you're a Star Trek fan. And under tags, I'm going to go to Cinema 4D tags, and I'm going to add an Xpresso tag. The scary Xpresso. It's not really that scary, don't worry about it. Now I got this blank window in here. Here's what you need to do. Drag your cylinder into the window. You can elongate it so you can see what you're doing a little bit. Okay? This is a representation of my cylinder. I'm also going to drag in the data because I'm a Star Trek fan. There's the data. Now we're going to create some data and we're going to feed it into the cylinder. I'm going to set that over here to the left for a minute where you can't see it. And we're going to talk about what goes in this field. Now, if you saw my gears tutorial, it's a good intro to Xpresso. You probably learned about doing user data. But I'm going to show you briefly again. If you click on this null, that's called data, and go to this user data tab and say that you want to add user data, it comes up with a dialog box. The question is, what do we want to put in here? We want to put degrees. We're working with degrees right now. So under unit, you put degree. Now all of this is pretty much set on where it needs to be. You've got 0 through 360 degrees. The only thing that we'll probably want to do here is name it. In this case, we're going to have dollars and cents, and we will have quite a few for this one, but this first one is going to be the one all the way to the right, which is going to be the 1. Now if you're going to do cents, if you're doing like groceries or something and you want to put cents on it, make sure you put that it's in the tens place or whatever you're going to do. In this case, we're going to do like the car commercial, and it's only going to be down to the nearest dollar. So this is the 1. So the name, it creates a short name for you automatically. So this is the ones place. And we have put it in here, this user data tab 1. And that's pretty much all you have to do to put that in there. We are going to put the other places in there, but we're going to wait until we're done because it's easier that way, just to duplicate everything. So I got my Xpresso back up here. If you accidentally close it, don't worry. You can just go to the Xpresso tab and double click on it and it will open back up. Now, on this left side, let me close this so you can see what it looks like by default. Under Xpool, we want to add some math and we want to do some multiplication. And it's easy, it's just to hit this little magnifying glass and just type math. If you drag that into the middle, I'm going to make that bigger so you can see. We got some data that needs to go in. We're going to do a little multiplication, and then we're going to send that over to the cylinder to tell it what to do. Now we're working with degrees, and we're working with these numbers which are divided into tens. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to get that input into this cylinder, and we're going to click on the red output button here. And we want to go down to user data and we want to select 1. Now that 1 right now is set. If you click on your null, it's set to 0. Let's set it to 1 just so we can see what we're doing here. We can see a result. So 1, this is where you're going to enter your dollars or your dollars and cents. We're going to output that into an addition field, into math, and we're going to multiply it. I'm doing multiply here. We're going to multiply by that one that we typed in there that's in degrees. We're going to multiply it by 36. Okay, that's the multiplication right there. So the data is 1. It's multiplying by 36. Why is it doing that? Well, every time that this rotates, it's going to rotate 36 degrees for every digit. Does it 10 times, that's 360 degrees. Using that math from school. Okay, now we're going to output the result of our multiplication. Now, if you want to make sure that it works before you do this, if you enter result and put a little result node thingy in here, you could get like a readout of what the answer is going to be. Now you're going to see it in real. It's going to be 0.628. I believe you can put it in here and get the degrees out. I'm not sure, but if you're seeing 0.628, that's correct. Now on your output, if you go to input of your cylinder and select rotation, not global rotation, but your regular rotation B, and you link these two, you'll notice that this clicks into place, into 1, because, again, our data is 1 multiplied by the 36 in this multiply. The degrees move on to cylinder. The result is showing a real number, but 0.628 is the exact number that you're looking for in that result if you want to see it before you put it in. And why do I know that? Because I've done this before. Alright. So we've got that in there. I'm going to move this aside. And we're going to try it out. We're going to click on data and we're going to put 2. There's 2. We're going to try 3. There's 3. All the way up to 9. Now if you get to your 9 and it lines up, you know that you've done it right, because if your degrees are off, then you won't have that 9 going straight on there. So that's good. So all we have to do now is just kind of duplicate this method in order to have a full-on clock. So what I'm going to do is, before we get going here, I'm just going to disconnect this cylinder so that we're not working with any results. I'm going to click on my cylinder and I'm going to tell it to go back to 0 so we can just have everything look uniform, look the same right now. Click on the cylinder, we're going to duplicate it, and the way that we do that is by holding down Command and dragging. And I'm going to drag each of these to an even number. You can choose. Now in this case, let's say we're doing a car, it's going to be in the thousands, so that's a lot of duplicating. So let's say $29,995 was the price of the car. Well, you've got your digits in place and ready to go. Now this is a big mess over here, so you want to start labeling everything. So this is going to be 1, 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000. Okay, so those are our 6 different places. And we're going to kind of do the same thing and then relink all this stuff in our Xpresso. I'm going to bring this down. And now that you kind of know what's going on here, You can go ahead and make these smaller. You can delete your result node because we're pretty sure that everything's working at this point. So I'm going to delete that. Now the nice thing about nodes is if you hold down Command, you can actually duplicate. I'm just going to do that going all the way down. We don't necessarily have to duplicate data, but I'm just doing it just to keep it uniform. Same thing, I guess, with, I don't know about the multiply, but mainly the data. You don't have to duplicate this 5 times. They can all come out of the same data, but I'm just doing this so that it looks uniform and you know what's going on here and it makes sense to you. You'll see what I mean once I go through the rest of this and show you what it looks like. Okay, see, on this one, we're going to put 10, then we're going to put 100, and then we're going to put so on and so on. And we have to create those. You click on data, you see we only have the one. I'm going to add, and all of these are going to be the same. They're going to be degrees. This one is going to be 10. Just adding user data for all of these. I didn't make that degree. Make sure you make that degree. 1000 degree. 10,000 degree. Alright, there's our places. What I would like to do here, though, is to have this in order, because if we're typing in 22,995, we want that to be in order on our data here. So I'm going to go back to Manage, and I'm going to reorder these so that it makes more sense when you type it in. See, it goes from the left to the right all the way down. Now, I may have confused you earlier. I hope this makes sense, but the reason you don't have to have all 5 of these data nodes here is because you could go in and go to user data and you already have 1. You could add 10 and so on, and you wouldn't have to have these other 4. All the outputs can come from this one node. I'm just showing you for this case because visually when you're watching this it just is easier to comprehend. So we got 1, we've got 10, we're going to go to 100, 1,000, 10,000. Alright. Now you don't want to attach it to the one cylinder on all of these. I just kind of duplicated those and I don't know why. Just to show you what it's going to look like. You're going to have to go in and drag each one of these individually. So we've got 10, because these are different objects. You don't want to control the same object. I would like to be able to make these look pretty. I want some better snapping stuff in here. That'd be nice. Oh, come on. All right. 10 input, 100 input, 1,000 input, 10,000 input. Now we multiplied these multiplies. You see, these all have these inputs going into them, except this one, which I didn't do. All right, they're all the same because each one is going to do the exact same thing. The only difference is they're controlling different objects. So you got to go in and say rotation B, rotation B, rotation B. They're all controlling rotation B on their respective cylinders. I'm going to connect them all. Missed that one and that one, dang it. They're really sensitive. There we go. Alright. So here's what we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you click on data here, you can see, remember we had that other one that we set to 9. It snapped back to 9. So we can enter in numbers. 22, 9, 95. Pretty sweet. Now, if you want it to look like it's rotating and it's some sort of clock, you could build a casing for this. Now, you might have to use some bools because this might stick out. It depends on how you make this. In this case, I'm going to build a really rough one to show you what it would look like. I'm going to create a cube, and I'm just going to make it, scale it up here to the right size. I'm going to cut it out. Now you could make holes around these so you could see the insides, and in this case, let me just change the Y a little bit. Gotta get this to a nice scale. Line that up. Alright, so what about the top? Well, you'll have to bool that. You want to get rid of it. You don't want to see it. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my 10,000, 1,000, 100, 10, and 1, and I'm going to group them together in a null, and I'm going to select them and hit Option G, which puts them into, or Alt if you're on a PC, I guess, puts them into a null. And then we want to group this null with a bool that's going to make the top and bottom disappear, because this isn't real life. We can do that. I'm going to duplicate my cube by holding down Command, moving it up, and I'm going to duplicate it down by holding Command and moving it down. So see, I've made two cubes that kind of cover this up. The back end should really make this cube go further back, but we're not going to be looking at the back. I'm going to group these two cubes together, and I'm going to call this the cut, because we're going to cut that out of the null that contains these numbers, which we will call numbers. And that cube, we'll go ahead and call that the housing, just to keep everything organized so we know where everything is. And I'm going to create a bool object. This is a subtraction. And what we want to do is cut the cut out of the numbers. Had them the wrong way there, okay? But you see where the cube was that we created, and it cut those out. It just erases them so that they're not there sticking all out and everything, because this isn't real life, it's magic. So if we click on data now and we look at frame 0, we want to set a keyframe for every single one of these numbers. So by holding down Command and clicking on the little tick boxes, we are setting this price at $29.95. Now, you know, what was my actual price? I believe it was $19,995 actually, not 22. So I'm going to put a 1, a 9, okay, $19,995. So that's where it's going to start, and we're going to keyframe all of these by holding down Command and clicking on the tick box next to them. So we have keyframed 19,995. Now we want this to quickly move down to the other price. Pretty quick. I'm only thinking like 15 frames or so. It's going to really spin. Let's say 20, just for the purposes of demonstration. So I'm going to 20 frames later, we're going to change the price. The price is going to be 14,889. And I'm going to go 1. Well, the 1's going to stay the same. And I'm going to go 4, 8, 8, 9, 14,889. And got to keyframe those. I'll just do that. So what happens? You scroll through your animation, and these automatically keyframe to the correct numbers. 19,995 to 14,889. And you might want to dress this up a little bit. You probably are going to want to put a comma and a $sign. So I'm going to do MoGraph, hit up a little Mo text, and move that. Come on, snap tool. There we go. 90 degrees. Not really too concerned with my font at this moment for the demonstration. Yeah. Look at that. And we also want a comma. And on the numbers, I'm going to go ahead and take the last 3 digits, the 1, 10, and 100, and I'm going to move them this way just a little bit so I can put in the comma. I'm just going to copy my price tag and put a comma. And then line it up. Okay, now I'm going to make a black box. Black texture on the box, which is the housing. 19,995. Now, if you were going to do a commercial with this, you'd have nice bevels, you'd have lighting, you'd have reflections, you would have a sky, you'd have all that stuff. And you could even add a little camera move or something like that. And that's kind of the best part about it. I mean, what's the point in doing like flat writing like this that you could just do in After Effects when you could make it look really cool and make it look reflective and all lighted nice? And that's the whole point, right? Because that's going to make customers want to go to you to have a really cool price instead of some other dude's place that only does it in like Apple Motion 2D. That's no fun. So I'm going to take these 2 pieces of text. I'm going to put fillet caps on them. I'm just going to do this really fast so you can kind of see what you could do with this. Same thing, real thin bevel. Okay, there's a bevel going on there. And going to add my favorite sky. If you've watched some of my other tutorials, you can see that my favorite sky, I believe, is number 4, HDRI. Oh man, they still have not fixed the search in Cinema for like 4 versions. Presets, search, HDRI. Thank you. HDRI 4. I'm going to put it on the sky. I'll make my, sorry if I'm going fast, but you can learn this in my tips and tricks. Number 1, how to do this. I'm going to turn on reflections. Yeah, getting some reflections on that box. I'm going to add a camera. And I'm going to say that I want it to end about right here. Oops. 90 frames. That's where it's going to end. Roll back just a little bit, set another camera keyframe. So you can see, got, no I don't. Oh, how did I screw that up? Oops. There we go. There's my just slight rotational camera movement there. Got some reflections. I want to put a couple lights on it. Apparently I oriented this thing the wrong way. Doesn't matter though. It's all good. Got a light. Put a little bit of shadow on it. I'm going to make the maps a little bit higher. Say 1500. It's pretty good, I guess. Call one the key, call one the fill. No shadows on the fill, by the way. You don't want to have a lot of shadows. You only want to have shadows on like one light, maybe two, or else you got way too many shadows going on. And you don't want everything to be at 100% either. My fill is going to be at 60, and my key is going to be at 80. That'll work. I'm going to make the price white. A little white texture. Oops. Dang it. Oh, fine. I'll do it the right way. A little bit of reflection in the white would be nice. You have to add more reflection to white, so it picks up more. Then I'm going to select all three of these textures here, and I prefer more of a pointy specular so it doesn't look washed out. And lastly, on my sky, I'm going to go to tags, add a compositing tag, and tell it not to be seen by camera, because all we want is the price clock. I'm going to set that to render real quick. Make sure this is the first time that I've actually rendered anything in R15, so I don't have my settings. Anti-aliasing is at best. When you go to save, I'm going to set my save point here. Make sure when you go to save that you have your alpha channel on, because you're going to overlay this on top of something. And I'm not really doing a multipass this time around. You could potentially, I guess, do a vector pass so that you could get a nice motion blur as these numbers are changing. For this demonstration though, I'm not really going to do that. It's not really necessary. And I'm going to output all frames. I'm going to do all 90 of these. And I'm going to make sure that I have this set, of course, to DVC Pro, I'm sorry, HDTV 1080 2997, unless you are in another country, in which case do whatever the station requires, I guess. So Shift R, that's going to render this out. It should go rather quick, and I'll be back with you in a minute. Alright, it's all rendered out. I'm going to go ahead and open After Effects here, and it's just missing the price, so I'm going to double click and bring in that sequence. going to be quite large as I have it right now. Way too big. Scale it and put it into place. There we go.
We're stacking them deep and selling them cheap. A Nissan Altima was $19,995. Now only $14,889. We don't care how you get here, folks. Just get here.
Well, I hope you enjoyed me embarrassing myself for another Brograph tutorial. I'm Dave Koss, and it's been a pleasure teaching you. If you would like to learn more, we have plenty of stuff online. We're building a pretty big database of tutorials here, and just about every week we have something new. We've got models and stuff coming out. We've got lots of experiments and projects. We've got newsletter. If you want to go to Brograph.com, you can sign up for that newsletter. You can also join us on Twitter to get updates on tutorials, as well as Facebook. Facebook has the updates as well as some other goodies, and we have a subreddit if you'd like to follow it that way. We've been hanging out a lot with the guys in the Cinema 4D subreddit as well, and we are sponsoring this month's contest, although that probably won't be relevant if you're watching this a year from now. That's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me in one of those venues, many venues we have there. And if you get stuck, or you don't know how to do something, or if you have maybe an idea for a different tutorial, we are always open to input on that. Just send it on over, and we'll see if we can put that in our cache of tutorials that we want to do. So, until next time, I'm Dave Koss, and this is Brograph.com. Later, bros.